Welcome to another episode of Globedades. This is a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University, Mexico. My name is Arturo Flores, and today I have the pleasure of having as a guest Sam Chang. He started an association which is called Negative Vote Association. And Sam, it's a real pleasure to have you here today with us. I will start by asking you how or what made you think about starting this association. I know that you moved from finance, you have a finance background. So if you could tell us about what made you think about starting this negative vote association and why moving from finance to politics?
Well, it's entirely accidental. um, I retired as a investment banker many years ago. My expertise was as an investment banker mainly related to mergers, acquisitions, especially cross-border deals. And on one of those deals, I helped a Taiwan company that was interested in acquiring an Israeli company. And for that particular project, I went to Israel 3 times. And in one of the trips, after dinner, casual conversation with the local host, the host asked me about the military draft system in Israel, whether I knew there were some people who are exempt from the military service. I said, no, I didn't know. I said, I thought everybody in Israel, whether men or women, is subject to the draft. So he started to tell me about during Independence War, a group of Orthodox religious leaders went to see Ben Gurion and asked to exempt the students from their religious schools from the draft. And there were just a few hundred back then, so Ben Gurion agreed, and laws were later passed on to exempt this particular group. Now, my friend in Israel considered himself a centrist, sort of middle of the road voter. He said there are many people like me in Israel who feel very frustrated by this group because he said these are the people who make all the trouble. They are the ones who go occupy lands. They are the ones who don't want to have peace treaty with the Palestinians. And when trouble starts, my children have to fight. Their children don't have to fight. This is not fair. But I can do nothing about it because Israel is a multi-party country, a lot of parties. Any large party that wants to form a government must talk to this group because they're very cohesive. They're always there proportionally in the parliament. So this group has a disproportional influence on Israeli national policy, even though many sort of centrist middle road voters don't like them. There's nothing they can do. I used to do Zen meditation practice regularly. So next morning in my hotel room, I during my meditation, this idea came to me. What if my friend could vote no against this group? Many people like him would do that. Then they would reduce the influence of this group. And wouldn't that be good for Israel and Palestinian relationship? And wouldn't that be wonderful for the world as well? So I thought it was a great idea then, and I Googled, searched, and found other people had thought about this idea before. So basically, I did nothing. It's not my field, right? I have never taken a course in political science, but the idea sort of stuck with me. And after came back to Taiwan, through a lot of casual conversations, people urged me to do something. And then finally, I started to form a Facebook group, hoping that the idea would spread by starting that group. And of course, it didn't. Just by forming a group on Facebook is not going to work. So eventually in 2015, I settled down to say, okay, I'm going to do something about this. So I organized the Negative Vote Association in Taiwan in 2015. It took almost a year to do that, by the way.
Okay.
Um, so let me explain exactly what it is. Uh,
Yeah,
It's a very,
I was going to
it,
ask you what is in you know in like in fact what is negative voting about? What
yeah,
is how does it
it,
work?
in fact, it's a very simple idea. Uh, all I am asking is that we as voters should have the choice to vote no. And if you choose to vote no against a candidate you don't like, your vote will be counted as -1. So
Okay.
winner in a future election would have to be someone who gets higher net positive votes. In other words, the positive votes that he gets will be reduced by the negative vote. And it's very important that in this proposal, every voter still has only one vote. Okay. So you can either choose to vote yes for someone you like or vote no against someone you don't like. To keep the one person, one vote is important because when you have only one vote, all the loyal partisan voters, by definition, will vote yes for the party nominee. So who's going to vote no? The people who are not tied ideologically or otherwise to a particular party or candidate. For me, all these independent minded people are middle of the road voters. And when you have only one vote, you will vote against the person you dislike the most. So for the middle of the road voters, that means the extremist, whether it's far right or far left, or simply the worst politician for whatever reason. So this will allow you to get rid of the worst politician. And that's very important because in future elections, wherever there's a very tight race, a very small increase in voter participation can change the outcome of the race. And where does this increased participation come from? It comes from the people in the middle. So all the candidates or political parties, A, they have to nominate better persons. B, they have to care whether this increased participation of the middle voters are going to vote against me or for me. So how do you win the votes from the middle? You cannot continue the negative campaign we see today, right? Wherever there's an election nowadays, certainly that's true for Taiwan, and you can see that in the United States as well. The candidates tend to simply throw dirt on the other side. So negative campaign is very prevalent today. And that's why we have less and less voter participation. People get frustrated. They're all bad. Why should I vote for anyone? Right? So to get people to vote for someone, you have to bring beef to the table. The US term is you have to show me what you want to do, right? You have to tell me what you want to do rather than just blame everything bad on the other side. So
Yeah.
this will change the conduct of political campaigns in any district where there's a tight race.
Yeah, but there is also this is very interesting because then you also as a voter you will you will have to rationalize your vote from a different perspective because then you can either vote positive for someone or negative for someone and I mean the value or the direction of your vote you will have to think like more thoroughly I think about how you're going to uh, or who you are going to vote for and in which sense.
Yes, and we believe that's very important. So your vote, you now have the choice to vote no. You have to think very carefully how you want to vote, right? And I believe that's very good for the voters. Nowadays, you a lot of people say I don't want to vote, simply I cannot vote, so from I dislike. With
Yeah.
this, they will come in. So this additional participation by itself would already make a huge contribution to democracy.
Yeah. Just a reminder to the people that are listening to us this in this program. Today we are talking with Sam Chang about negative voting. This is Globedades, a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University, Mexico. My name is Arturo Flores. And Sam, could you provide some examples of how this negative voting could be implemented, or has it been already implemented? Do you have any cases or experiences in this regard?
Yes, if you Google search, you'll find that at the United Nations, when they select the Secretary General, the choice to vote against is already available, right?
Okay.
You can find that in Wikipedia. Also, there are some countries that allow this expression of disapproval in a different manner than what I propose. For example, in the in the country of Armenia, in their election code, is specifically stated that when there's only one candidate, the choice to vote no must be available on the ballot.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
In United States, there's a such thing called judicial retention ballot for judges. So you decide whether to keep the judge on the bench or not, and the choice of yes or no are both available in that kind of ballot. And also in the countries of Latvia and Switzerland,
Mhm.
where the parliamentary seats are decided based on proportional allocation of the party vote. But in those countries where the party provides a list of nominees, you can vote yes for the party on the party vote, but on each of the nominees, the voter has the choice to say plus or minus on each of the nominee.
Okay.
Therefore, the voter can choose to like the party but dislike a nominee and hope the party doesn't, the nominee on the list doesn't get in. And I was told in Latvia that there was actually a case where the leader of the parliament for a party was rejected by voters, by his own party.
Okay. So now we have like real life examples of of this type of negative voting. I must add that I met Sam at this conference on modern direct democracy that was held in Mexico City a couple of weeks back, and we had a very nice conversation about how there is this sense of a I don't know if we could call it, Sam, if you would agree with me, a crisis of democratic institutions and direct democracy itself. Uh, how would well, first, if you agree with this crisis, and then secondly, how would negative voting contribute to sort out this crisis that we seem to have?
Yes, I fully agree. There's a crisis and been crisis going on for quite a long time, and it's a subject of almost all international democracy forums. And I will just give you an example of why I think this negative vote can really solve a big part of the problem. I mentioned about voter participation rate already. That's a global trend going down. This will turn it up. But we actually we had done several research surveys, and the one I spoke about in 2017 at the World Forum for Democracy in France was to cite an example of a survey at the Rand Corporation, which covered U.S. presidential election, a race between Clinton and Trump for 2016. In that race, we asked Rand to include the question that we want to ask. What if people have this choice? What big difference it would make? In that study, it showed had voters had this choice to vote no, voter participation in the United States in that race would have increased by about 7 percentage points, which of course is a huge number. For US, it would have meant 16 million additional voters voting. In addition, Trump would have received minus 3.9% net negative votes. Never should have been elected in the first place. Okay. Now, people would say, oh, US is not based on popular vote system, it's electoral college. So we repeated the exercise in the Biden versus Trump race, again, asking Rand to do the research to include our question in their research. But this time we asked them to break out the data for the 12 key swing states. So in that research, in the Biden versus Trump race, for those 12 key swing states, participation would have been 3.4 percentage points higher. Again, it's a large number. And Trump in those 12 swing states would have received minus 2%. Again, net negative. It's not a close race, right? So that's a good example how something like this can have a very momentous impact in a big country, in a major country, right? The dominant country in the world, in how it selects a leader. Can you imagine that in every single race globally, wherever there's a tight race, this is applied, we will end up having better candidates and better elected officials.
Yeah, well, I think the whole point of this is that since we are looking at like examples throughout the globe where campaigns seem to be more following a negative trend of the opponent in general, and most campaigns go in this sense, and providing voters with an option about giving a negative, like -1 vote to one of the candidates. Well, I think it opens a very like a very, I would say, innovative perspective about the value of the vote itself, because um, I think there is the perception that um, if you're able to vote, then you are experiencing a democracy. That's the general perspective. But giving the conditions that we have at the moment, where um, negative talk about your opponent seems to prevail, then also providing a negative vote for citizens appears to me like something interesting. And that, well, as you said, you mentioned the case of the US, which they do not have a direct impact on the way your vote is exercised, because it goes through the electoral college, and the candidate who wins, well, wins the largest number of electoral colleges in the whole country. But for example, I'm thinking in our situation here in most Latin American countries, including Mexico, well, the votes, I mean, the one who wins is the one who gets, the largest number of votes. It's just as simple as that. In some countries, you have like the second round, and in case there isn't enough difference, well, then you go to a second round. But in general terms, is the one who gets the largest number of votes. And now, from your perspective, would it be a difference between the way negative voting operates in a system like in the US compared to like a Latin American scenario?
Yes, this is very relevant in whatever scenario, whether there's one candidate, two candidates, or three candidates or more. Okay, especially relevant when there's only one candidate. Then, okay, but let's say there are two candidates. As you know, in France, they go through two rounds. And
Mhm.
in the last round, there are only two candidates. And people will say, oh, in two candidates, it doesn't make a difference. It still makes a huge difference when there are only two candidates because of this increased participation from the middle, right? When there are only two candidates, as in France's second round, you can look at the data, you see a lot of people choose not to vote
Yeah.
under the current system. But those people who choose not to vote under the current system, many of them would vote when the vote to disapprove is available. And that can change the outcome of a very tight race, right? There's a Boston City Council race, for example. The winner uh, won by only one vote difference. You can just imagine, suppose there are two voters who have the choice to vote no, voted against that leader, then the second place person would win, and that would be more democratic because more voters participated in that outcome. That's my argument, right? But I should also add, although we advocate that people should have the choice, we believe it's a basic human right issue that we as voters should have the choice to disapprove. We do not advocate that people should vote no. Just on the contrary, we hope by having this option, we will get rid of the worst politicians, that all parties will nominate better candidates. So I, as a voter, do not have to exercise the choice. I will simply vote yes for the better candidate. That's our goal, right? So this movement is very positive in the sense of what it will do. It will allow you to have a right we believe you should have in the first place, human right issue. It will increase voter participation for sure. All the research have done can prove that, and it will get rid of the extremist. So all these aspects means that I believe every country should seriously look at this and try to implement it. However, it's very difficult, as you know, to change election laws, and that comes into why direct democracy is important. That's why went to the conference. Direct democracy will help to fix a lot of errors in representative democracy,
Mm.
and we need more of that. And unfortunately, direct democracy is also very expensive, very difficult to exercise. So one other thing I try to do is try to implement online petition collection systems for direct democracy. You'll be surprised to know even California and Switzerland, which have had direct democracy for many, many years, decades, and in Switzerland case, more than 100 years, they don't have online petition collection systems. It's very, very rare. So in a pandemic, for example, you can't do it. You can't go out collect signatures anymore, right? But what if you can do it online? It'll be simpler, also less costly, and also environmentally friendly.
Mm.
But legislators try to block this kind of reform. So we have to, work harder to try to implement even this small aspect of getting direct democracy friendlier to people.
Well, very, very interesting indeed. Just a reminder to the people who are listening to this podcast. Today, we have as a guest Sam Chang. We are talking about negative voting. This is Globedades, a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University in Mexico City. So now, making a sort of a forecast of the future of democracy and how this type of voting could have like an impact. What's your vision? What do you see in the following years? Do you think that negative voting could be adopted in different countries or under different circumstances? What's your view about the future?
Well, that's basically what I've been working on over the last 8 or so years, is try to not only spread the message, but also try to implement the change. So I have two ongoing projects. One is in Taiwan, one is in El Cerrito, California. El Cerrito is a small city just north of Berkeley, north of San Francisco, in California. And what I do is try to collect enough signatures from that small community. And if I collect enough signatures, this issue will be put to the voters in El Cerrito. We hope the voters will approve it. And if they do, it will be the first place in the world, I believe, that has the proposal the way I structured it to be implemented. And I hope other countries, there are people who are interested enough to try to do this in their own country. I was told that in Germany, there is a group working on the exact same idea, also trying to implement it through direct democracy in a particular German city. I have not yet identified who they are. Someone in Germany is trying to help me connect with them. I believe that from people that have contacted me over the internet, there are now 14 different countries where people have said, this is a good idea. We'll try to promote it here. It goes in different continents, from Lesotho in uh, Africa to even Afghanistan before it was taken over by the Taliban.
Okay, so there are, I mean, there is an interest, of course, in this subject, and as you said, well, the let's say the number of countries, it's quite large, 14 countries already, like uh, that have they contacted you, right?
Right. People that have never met before contacted me over the internet, whether they heard about this idea in my speech in the international forum or simply through the internet because of the how the message got out. And uh, uh, so I will, I hope it'll be more. I know there's a guy in Argentina started a Spanish group on Facebook. Uh, this kind of reform takes a long time to see something achieved. So I just feel fortunate that I'm old enough and independent enough to dedicate myself to this effort. And I hope more people who are retired can join me to help spread the message.
But I mean, it's good that you are doing this. Like, as I told you before, I think you are doing some social work and awakening the like the consciousness of many people with this subject, which I think is very interesting. But I my guess will be that, I mean, you you must have also, young people interested in the subject, because you need to give this type of ideas, and you require also the energy of young people, to fight, or to try to change the way democratic institutions work at the moment.
Yes, I very much would like to see more young people get involved, and I try to speak to as many students as possible, especially university students or even high school students. But let's say in a university student group, as you know, the students elect their own student council representatives,
Yes, yes.
and I've always asked, if you like this idea, try to implement in your next student council election at your school, right? So get students to get used to the idea you should have the choice to vote no. And in school, it should be easy. You don't need to change the laws. You just need to discuss it and decide to do it. So actually, I know there was one college group in Taiwan implement this in their student council election, and I hope more students groups will do that. even starting from junior high school. If you have a student election, put this choice in the ballot, right? And once you get to used to having this choice, once you then when you get into society in a real political election, you find there's no such choice, you will get mad. You'll try to do something about it.
Yeah, Sam. Well, just to wrap up our session, which we have had today and which has been very interesting. Well, how do you see the future of direct democracy globally? Do you think that it can actually work to solve issues that we are facing today? Economic uncertainty, political unrest, and social crisis that we are experiencing in many parts of the world. How do you think that direct democracy could help with all these very complex issues?
Yes, I believe very strongly direct democracy can help because direct democracy means people by themselves voting on specific issues. And I believe globally the general trend will have to be on the way up. More and more people demanding it and hoping to get it implemented. In selective countries, you will see uh, direct democracy being blocked by the people in power, right? People in power usually do not like direct democracy, so they will attempt and often succeed in setting it back. I written an article about that, how we had a roller coaster ride for direct democracy in Taiwan. Is really gone downhill for over the last several years, but we hope it will come back up more through more local direct democracy, starting in a smaller community. So perhaps it was pushed down at the national level by the ruling party, but we should try to make our effort even more strongly at the local level. That's really what direct democracy is most relevant to the voters. So I'm very hopeful that uh, we can all achieve more at the local level.
Sam, thank you very much for your time. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope it's not the last time.
I hope we'll talk again soon. Thank you very much, Arturo, for this opportunity to explain this very important idea.
Thanks. Well, this was Globedades, a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University, Mexico. My name is Arturo Flores, and thank you for your attention. Bye bye.
Bye bye.